This blowing sound in the background is the heater, and I kind of like it. You know, it's pretty strange that so much sound is generated artificially in these booths that are meant to completely block out all of nature. They call them isolation booths, and so instead of hearing the heater or wind chimes or children in the background, you hear nothing. And that is just the strangest phenomenon. When you're in one of those, it feels almost claustrophobic. We're not used to just hearing nothing, you know? So anyway, I'm gonna very quickly look up clouds. What are clouds? Let's go to National Geographic. It seems like, oh my gosh, and it's saying for grades 5 through 12 plus, like, people literally think that we're idiots, and they're not wrong. Oh, being a scientist must be the loneliest thing. Oh, these photos are so beautiful, and they have to do this so that we'll just give a fuck. Oh, I saw a lenticular flat cloud before. It was so amazing. I have to say that it's not a UFO. Okay, that's sad. Okay. It says, clouds are visible accumulations of tiny water droplets or ice crystals in the Earth's atmosphere. Clouds differ greatly in size, shape, and color. They can appear thin and wispy or bulky and lumpy. Clouds usually appear white because the tiny water droplets inside them are tightly packed, reflecting most of the sunlight that hits them. Okay, I didn't know that. White is how our eyes perceive all wavelengths of sunlight mixed together. When it's about to rain, like it is right now, clouds darken because the water vapor is clumping together into raindrops, leaving larger spaces between drops of water. Okay, less light is reflected. The rain cloud appears black or gray. Okay. Clouds form when air becomes saturated or filled with water vapor. Warm air can hold more water vapor than cold air, so lowering the temperature of an air mass is like squeezing a sponge. Clouds are the most visible result of that squeeze of cooler, moist air. Moist air becomes cloudy with only slight cooling. With further cooling, the water or ice particles that make up the cloud can grow into bigger particles that fall to Earth as precipitation. Because it's heavy. Okay. And what causes them to get heavy again? I feel like I should ask ChatGPT. Oh my gosh. New chat. Why does it rain? Oh my god. Why does it rain? Rain occurs due to the water cycle and specific atmospheric conditions. Here's a simplified explanation of why it rains. 1. Evaporation. The sun hits the surface of oceans, rivers, and lakes, causing water to evaporate and turn to water vapor. This water vapor rises into the atmosphere. Condensation. As the water vapor rises higher into the atmosphere, it cools down, right? Because it gets cold, we go higher up. Cooler air can't hold as much water vapor as warmer air, so the excess water vapor begins to condense around tiny dust particles, salt, or other substances in the air. Okay, that's interesting. This forms tiny droplets of water or ice crystals, which come together to form clouds. Okay, so clouds aren't just water, but they're also like bullshit. It's like natural and synthetic. Well, I shouldn't say synthetic. I mean, I'm sure there's plastic in there at this point, but I mean, what's synthetic? Anyway, is there? plastic in, oh my god, clouds. Oh my god, microplastics are found in clouds. Okay. From depths of the seas to snow on mountains and even the air above cities, microplastics are turning up increasingly often. Now in ACS's Environmental Science and Technology letters, researchers have analyzed microplastics in clouds above mountains. They suggest that these tiny particles could play a role in cloud formation and, in turn, affect weather. Microplastics, plastic fragments smaller than 5 millimeters. So that's actually not that small, to tell you the truth. 5 millimeters is something we can see. They originate from a myriad of items used daily, such as clothing, packaging, and car tires. As research in the field evolves, scientists are not only detecting microplastics in the atmosphere, but also investigating how they may play a role in cloud formation. Where'd my shit go? Okay. So, why do we have different categories for, oh my god, clouds? Clouds are categorized based on their appearance, altitude, and the type of weather that they're associated with. These classifications help meteorologists and scientists better understand and predict weather patterns. The classification of clouds helps in understanding the atmospheric conditions, predicting weather changes, and interpreting weather patterns. By observing and categorizing clouds, meteorologists can provide more accurate weather forecasts and warnings to the public. Who invented cloud classifications? Luke Howard in 1802. What's Met Office? Oh my god. Reject all. The classification of clouds into types was first proposed by Luke Howard in 1802, and we largely use the same system today. This splits clouds into three main types: stratus, cumulus, cirrus. Clouds are continually changing and appear in an infinite variety of forms. The classification of clouds is based on a book written by Luke Howard, a London pharmacist and amateur meteorologist in 1803. His book, The Modifications of Clouds, named the various cloud structures he had studied. The terms he used were readily accepted by the meteorological community and are still used across the world today. So Luke Howard was a British manufacturing chemist and an amateur meteorologist with broad interest in science. His lasting contribution to science is a nomenclature system for clouds, which he proposed in 1802 presentation to the Ascasian Society. Because of this, Howard is referred to as the godfather of clouds, the namer of clouds, and the father of meteorology. Wow, whatever. So he's a pharmacist, and Luke Howard has been called the father of meteorology for his comprehensive recordings of weather in the London area from 1801 to 1841. That's 40 fucking years. And his writings, which transformed the science of meteorology. In his late 20s, Luke Howard wrote the essay on the modification of clouds, which was published in 1803. Howard's system was similar to the recently popularized Linnaean classification system developed by taxonomist Carl von Linne. Okay. Howard named the three principal categories of clouds: cumulus, stratus, and cirrus, as well as a series of intermediate and compound modifications such as cirrostratus and cirrocumulus, in order to accommodate the transitions occurring between the forms. Howard's classification system applied the recently popularized Linnaean principle of natural history classification. By applying these principles to phenomena as short-lived as clouds, Howard arrived at an elegant solution to the problem of naming transitional forms in nature. The problem. In his 1803 essay, Howard included detailed cloud drawings to supplement the written descriptions of his classifications. The drawings of clouds were Howard's own, taken from the rigorous notes and watercolor sketches in Howard's sketchbook. However, the landscapes were done by painter Edward Kenyon, as Howard had no formal artistic training. The engravings done by Thomas Milton for the publishing of Howard's essay slightly altered the depictions of the clouds. Howard emphasized the importance of clouds in meteorology. Clouds are subject to certain distinct modifications produced by the general causes which affect all the variations of the atmosphere. They are commonly as good visible indicators of the operation of these causes as is the countenance of the state of a person's mind or body. Sorry, ChatGPT. Please explain. Just as you can tell a lot about a person's emotions or health by looking at their face or body, certain indicators or phenomena can provide valuable insights into the underlying causes or conditions that are affecting a situation. These indicators are considered reliable and informative because they clearly reflect the events or influence of specific causes, similar to how a person's appearance can reflect their well-being or emotional state. Sometimes. Howard had the same elementary knowledge of cloud physics as many other researchers at the time, including his close friend and chemist, John Dalton. Some of this knowledge was generally correct, like Howard and Dalton's belief that clouds were formations of water particles, that the slow speed of the particles' descension was due to air resistance, and that they evaporated right before the cloud base. Howard, however, had some incorrect beliefs about cloud physics. Primarily, Howard gave electricity too large a role in the formation of clouds. The knowledge Howard had about cloud physics partially formed his motives for creating a classification system. I feel like that's really important. Okay, so here's another thing. Wow. So John William Money, by the way, he lived from 1921 to 2006. That's not that long ago, obviously. He's internationally known for his work in psychoendocrinology and developmental sexology, defined the concepts of gender role and identity. He worked at Johns Hopkins University as a professor and did research on human sexual behavior and gender, believing that gender identity was malleable from the first 2 years of life. Just the first 2 years of life, though. Money advocated for the surgical normalization of the genitalia of intersex infants. Okay. Money advanced the use of more accurate terminology in sex research, coining the terms gender role and sexual orientation. That's his invention. Despite widespread popular belief, Money did not coin gender identity. Money pioneered drug treatment for sex offenders to extinguish their sex drives. Oh no. Since the 1990s, Money's work and research has been subject to significant academic and public scrutiny. In 1997, an academic study criticized Money's work in many respects, particularly in regard to the involuntary sex reassignment of the child David Raymer. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Money believed that transgender people had ID fix is a preoccupation of the mind believed to be firmly resistant to any attempt to modify it. A fixation. The name originates from the French idea, and fixed, okay? And established the Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic in 1965. Sorry, wait, going away. He screened adult patients for 2 years prior to granting them a medical transition and believed sex roles should be de-stereotyped so that masculine women would be less likely to desire transition. Oh. Money is generally viewed as a negative figure by the transgender community. I guess so. Money's writing has been translated into many languages and includes around 2,000 articles, books, chapters, and reviews. He received around 65 honors, awards, and degrees in his lifetime. Okay. Money was born in Morrisville, New Zealand, to a Christian fundamentalist family of English and Welsh descent. Right. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Author Janet Frame attended some of Money's classes at the University of Otago as part of her teacher training. Frame was attracted to Money and eager to please him. In October 1945, after Frame wrote an essay mentioning her thoughts of suicide, Money convinced Frame to enter the psychiatric ward at Dundon Public Hospital, where she was misdiagnosed as suffering from schizophrenia. Frame then spent 8 years in psychiatric institutions, including during which she was subjected to electroshock and insulin shock therapy. Frame narrowly missed being lobotomized. In Frame's autobiography, An Angel at My Table, Money is referred to as John Forrest. Oh dear, oh dear. I don't know if I can even read this. What the fuck am I looking at? Okay. The sex reassignment of David Raymer. During his professional life, Money was respected as an expert on sexual behavior, especially known for his views that gender was learned rather than innate. However, it was later revealed that his most famous case of David Raymer, born Bruce Raymer, was fundamentally flawed. In 1966, a botched circumcision left 8-month-old Raymer without a penis. Money persuaded the baby's parents that sex reassignment surgery would be in Raymer's best interest. Bitch, what? At the age of 22 months, Raymer underwent an orendectomy in which his testicles were surgically removed. He was reassigned to be raised as female, and his name changed from Bruce to Brenda. We just treat people like fucking experiments all the time. And in a bad way, in a really bad way. Money further recommended hormone treatment, to which the parents agreed. Money then recommended a surgical procedure to create an artificial vagina, which the parents refused. Money published a number of papers reporting the reassignment as successful. David Raymer was raised under the optimum gender rearing model, which was the common model for sex and gender socialization, medicalization for intersex youth. The model was criticized for being sexist and for assigning an arbitrary gender binary. According to John Colapinto. Sorry, John. According to John Colapinto's biography of David Raymer, starting when Raymer and his twin Brian were 6 years old, Money showed the brothers pornography and forced the two to rehearse sex. When either child resisted, Money would get angry. Both Raymer and Brian recall that Money was mild-mannered around their parents, but ill-tempered when alone with them. Money also forced the two children to... Colapinto speculates that Money's rationale for his treatment of the children was his belief that childhood sexual rehearsal play at thrusting movements and copulation was important for a healthy adult gender identity. Oh God, because he's a victim. Brian spoke about the therapy only with the greatest emotional turmoil, and David was unwilling to speak about the details publicly there. At 14 years old and in extreme psychological agony, David Raymer was told the truth by his parents. He chose to begin calling himself David, and he underwent surgical procedures to revert the female bodily modifications. Oh. By the time this deception was discovered, the idea of purely socially constructed gender identity and infant intersex medical interventions had become the accepted medical and sociological standard. David Raymer's case came to international attention in 1997 when he told his story to Milton Diamond, an academic sexologist who persuaded Raymer to allow him to report the outcome in order to dissuade physicians from treating other infants similarly. Soon after, Raymer went public with his story, and John Colapinto published a widely disseminated and influential account in Rolling Stone magazine in December 1997. This was later expanded into the New York Times best-selling biography as Nature Made Him, The Boy Who's Raised a Girl. Oh, Jesus. In it, Colapinto described how, contrary to Money's reports, when living as Brenda, Raymer did not identify as a girl. He was ostracized and bullied by peers who dubbed him Cave Woman. And neither frilly dresses nor female hormones made him feel female. Intersex activists also criticized Money, stating that the underreported failure had led to the surgical reassignment of thousands of infants as a matter of policy. Privately, Money was mortified by the case, colleagues said, and, as a rule, did not discuss it. Researcher Mary Ann Case wrote that Money made fraudulently deceptive claims about the malleability of gender in certain patients who had involuntarily undergone sex reassignment surgery, and that this fueled the anti-gender movement. Anti-gender movement? This is such a disaster. What the fuck are we talking about? Money had a particular interest in gender dysphoria and transgender people. He believed transgender people had ID fixe, a preoccupation of the mind resistant to change. According to Goldie, Money is seen as a negative figure amongst transgender people, no doubt. In one paper, Money described trans women as devious, demanding, and manipulative in their relationships with people on whom they are also dependent, and possibly also incapable of love. Jesus. Money believed that de-stereotyping sex roles might prevent people from wanting to transition, arguing a tomboyish girl, prenatally androgenized, grows up to be a career-minded woman, not a transsexual who claims to need sex reassignment. Oh boy. Oh God. Oh my god, this is so horrible. Oh my god, it's that thing. It's that thing. He tried to crush the undifferentiated universe down into certainty. He said there's 3 types of clouds: this, and that. This cloud means that. This cloud means that. This cloud means there's rain. Which, by the way, it turns out that that's not true. It's a lot more complicated than that. Those 3 categories have been expanded into 10, and those 10 are even an oversimplification of the types of clouds that there are, because there's no types of clouds. Clouds just simply are. They simply exist. And so does everything else alive. We're all existing, made in the image of the environment around us. And we try so hard to put words to that, but words ultimately fail. It's sweet in a way, but it's actually ruined our lives. Not being curious about the living world around you, not being curious about the living world within you, trying to bottle everything into certainty, into these categories. It's like how a language is only alive because people are adding to it. They're bringing, different languages, different cultures. They're bringing present slang. They're bringing new understandings, exclamations, things that come from dreams into language. That's what makes it alive, is that it's changing, that it's growing, that it's becoming like weird. But by and large, we act like we prefer things that are dead. And so when my mom said, "Are you trans?" I think it reminded me of that. Because I realized she wasn't asking that in order to better understand me and grow with me and move with me. She was asking that in order to understand a new fear to have surrounding me. And she already has so many. And I think that's how a lot of people feel about trans people. It's not a matter of curiosity or looking inward, of understanding that life can be a lot stranger and more unique than we initially thought. It's about being afraid to say the wrong word, afraid you don't understand the categories, secretly afraid about your own self, because if this person's trans, what does that mean about you? You're kind of similar. But it's really, to me at least, something bigger, which is, if we can't pin down the clouds in the sky, something that we see every day, something that we learn about in the 3rd grade, why would we think that we can pin down each other? And I think that there's actually a lot of use of categorizing clouds. It can tell you a lot about the environment. It can tell you a lot about if it's going to rain, what the temperature is, pollution levels. Just like I think there's so much use in being able to categorize people. It can tell you sometimes things about their interests, personality, maybe colors they like, where they like to shop, maybe music. It makes it just a little bit easier to, on a surface level at least, get along. But the problems always come when you go deeper. Is it possible to grieve the understanding of gender, of our political system, of climate, all of these things that were given to us from these guys who seem a little bit similar? Guys we didn't even know the names of. Is it possible to get our sense of awe and wonder back? Because wonder to me is about when you see something and you realize life is so much stranger and bigger than you thought, than you ever thought possible. To a point it starts making everything around you feel and look somehow stranger and grander, you know? Okay, well, anyway, I guess I'm gonna head to Rainbow Acres. We'll see if this turns into anything. I don't know.